Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, bringing you another Old Man Orange Presents Via VHS episode. One of them from the rarities vault that we have from back in the day that just never got put out. So come join us for another fun-filled retro movie review. Let's jump on in.
So welcome to the Via VHS Podcast. I'm Wesley, along with my co-host, Spencer Scott Holmes.
Hey.
Hey, man, what's up?
Oh, not much, you know. Can't wait to talk some good old Western 80s style. Gonna get deep dive into it.
Rex Daytona and Pete Provo here.
Yeah,
That's
buddy.
so confusing. We need to stick to what we want to use.
I like our fun names, our almost like radio host, kind of I don't know, our shock jock names. I don't know how shocking we are, but I like having that. But it's also ones in life you can only remember so many names. I even forget my own when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, it totally did not take on the direction I was intending with these names. See, I was intending really cool 80s action names, like Axe Bladesaw or Laser Nighthawk or something. And we ended up with these very borderline porn names.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Rex Daytona really also has that feeling like if there was a 1991 kids NASCAR show, that feels like a character straight out there. Pete Provo's the alternative stand-in for whatever Dirk Diggler and Boogie Nights.
the male fluffer was a thing.
Exactly, the guy who gets Marky Mark ready.
Well, I talked to Alex, good old Alex. We haven't talked to him in a while, but I said, hey, I mentioned to him coming on the show in the future. This is a while back. I said, hey, we got nicknames now. And his was Cinnamon something. I'm like, bro. And then so he was Cinnamon Bear or something like that.
What's he, a dancer?
Well, yeah, I mean, but honestly, it's on brand at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on brand. So I've kind of given up on the really cool, something Nate McThunder or something like that.
Nate McThunder.
Yeah, so that's what I was going for.
See, I like that because that reminds me. That even feels like a Thunder in Paradise name right there.
Thunder in Paradise. There might be a Thunder in Paradise episode coming up in the near future.
There might be. There is some Thunder in Paradise. There might be more Thunder in Paradise episodes coming up in the deep future. Deep future.
Deep future. We have to do that. We have really sucked at the TV thing. We've been wanting to throw some TV stuff in there.
Well, TV's tough.
It is tough. I think Sabrisco County Jr. needs to happen.
Yes. It's somewhere back there.
You got on your shelf?
I do.
I still don't have my second shelf, so my back, my background's still kind of barren. I'm still waiting on shelf number 2. I've got a giant, if I could pan the camera, which I'm not going to, I mean a massive pile of VHS on the floor.
Hey, I got that too, right down there too, because I just ran out of space on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then my other VHS shelf and so on like that too. But
well, quite frankly, even when I get the second shelf, I'm not feeling confident about getting all these VHS in there.
At least it's just not going to be like those moments where you're putting a bookshelf together and you think it can hold the books, but you don't know that until you've totally filled it to the brim and then it breaks. Yeah.
Well, I'm not worried about it breaking. I'm just worried about running out of room and there's still VHS.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. The story of my life is that every single time I get a new shelf, I need another shelf. Because then it's maxed up again. I probably have 8 video shelves, and I still don't have enough. I still have stacks.
You're just, and I mean this, I'm being complimentary when I say this. But we've discussed this several times before. You're kind of a low-grade hoarder. Okay.
People keep saying that, and I maybe I'm not gonna lie, that kind of is. I take things in, literally, if there's a bag of DVDs and someone's like, "Hey, you want these?" I'm like, "Yeah, give those to me." Well, what's in there? I don't care. I'll take the whole thing.
Well, that's not the problem. It's not, and this is not a problem actually. So let me rephrase that. I'm actually extremely jealous of your abilities to keep things intact. Mm-hmm. Because my scatterbrained ass wouldn't. I lose shit all the time. You've got, Surge pencils, right?
I do. Right here, just next to me, so I can look at it. I know you can't see this on the screen, but I got my Kevin Nash and Sting WCW pencils. Never been sharpened.
I see. All I have to do is say something. You got.
I also got Lex Luger one too, which I think is even cooler than all that because that just seems even more bizarre. The old Lex Luger pencil.
Somebody stole my Lex Luger pencil. I'm gonna beat his ass. We're waiting for him in the cafeteria. Yeah, you've got some cool ones. You have to go back in the backlog to find the cool stuff.
Yeah,
of all the Spencer's Museum of Nostalgia.
Yeah, the random stuff that I've just collected over the years, and just as time goes on, it builds
impressive.
up.
Yeah, it is impressive. I'm still thinking about the Devil's Advocate t-shirt.
That one to go with my Air Force One purse looking thing
with your fanny pack. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
I miss those days when you used to get a pay-per-view and they would send you something. I used to get all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, we never did the pay-per-view thing.
Yeah, they were quite rare actually, but every single time I did, it was kind of it felt like it was well worth it. I mean, remember getting Lost World and you got an action figure with it. You got
really?
Yeah, Batman and Robin. They sent me a Superman action figure. I thought that was a little bit bizarre, but it was okay, cool.
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't. But I can't complain. I got to see a lot of movies for free as a kid.
Well, yeah, because you had the movie theater access.
Yeah.
The poster collection.
Cool. Poster collection. I firmly have all of them ready to do something with them. I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, so this episode, we're going back to 1985. We did Free Jack last week from 1992, and somehow that felt much older.
Yeah.
Than this movie from 1985 that we're about to do.
Well, this movie sounds weird. It feels like it's a 90s movie, though it's actually an 85 film.
Yeah.
It feels very proto.
Well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just to kind of set it up, we'll go into the review, obviously, in a few minutes, and then we'll have the Flashback Portal first, and we'll go over that in just a moment. But it's on Netflix. If you've never seen Silverado, you got a window to go see it. It's first thing that jumps out at you is Lawrence Kasdan. Mm-hmm. This is prime Kasdan here. He did a few of those kind of underground hits, like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, this little assistant writer to old George Lucas there.
Yeah, but he was very influential, and of course the Indiana Jones films. Mm-hmm. Big Chill, but also Silverado.
He also did Wyatt Earp, the one that, most people look at me like blasphemy, but I like that one more than Tombstone. I love Tombstone, don't get me wrong, but...
They're both good. I mean,
yeah.
It's just... Val Kilmer and Tombstone is just... It's a special thing.
Yeah, Val Kilmer is he is very magical, but so is, what's his name? Not Randy Quaid. Dennis Quaid.
Yeah. We get the Quaid's mixed up. I have problems with that.
Well, I can always remember Randy Quaid's name. It takes me a second to remember Dennis, so I have to say Randy to get to Dennis. Then I go,
remember their names, and I remember if you showed me their face, I'm like, that one's in this movie, that one's in this. I don't get them literally mixed up. Mm-hmm. I just get their first names mixed up.
Yeah.
It's just a thing. I don't know why I do that. But the Quaids, what we're talking about, Silverado. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's one movie that the first thing I noticed because ADD ooh shiny, the poster is legit.
Yes,
yeah,
very
poster
cool.
Is fire. There's a few different variations of it, and all of them are sexy.
Oh yeah, totally.
Very sexy poster, and just the name Silverado is just cool. It's not about the truck.
No.
Don't get your hopes up.
That's one thing. You can't just type 1985 Silverado lots of times in there, or else the pickup truck appears first.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's Lawrence Kasdan at the height of his powers, and then this cast. Holy cow.
The cast is out of this world. And it's one of those ones I'll say is in 1985, it wouldn't feel as out of the world at the moment. But in time, it's like you're getting tons of these kind of guys that are going to be humongous as, we go on.
Yeah. You got a few of them that are kind of already I don't want to say A-listers, but they're kind of on the verge of, they're at least well known, a few of them, but they're not at the height yet. And then you got a few guys that are just not, they haven't had their big breaks yet, but they're about to, particularly Kevin Costner.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Costner, Danny Glover.
Yeah, this is before Lethal Weapon.
This is also before Color Purple, even too.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's right before it.
Yeah.
And then, then also, there's a third one. Who's it? The other one that brought up Toll Blanco.
Goldblum's in there.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. That's the other real big one too.
Yeah, it started. I mean, the two main characters are Kevin Kline and
Scott Glenn. I had to look over.
Thank you. I always forget his name.
Yeah, you know. And so I mean, those guys right there just already ginormous too.
Scott Glenn looks like Carradine.
Yeah, he loves David Carradine quite a bit.
Yeah, they just kind of cross over in my mind a little bit. But so Silverado's got a great cast. It has got a great director, and after some of the shit we watched and shit we're going to watch, this was refreshing.
Yeah, well, this movie is one of those ones where it's almost like a pure perfect film. Like the whole way through, it's great. Everything about this movie just kicks ass.
Underrated hit.
Oh yeah, totally.
We'll just go ahead and say it.
Well, and you know what I think it is though? It's because this sounds kind of weird, but once you're in like the 80s isn't really a popular time for Western and so on. Because really, Young Guns was sort of the thing that brought back Westerns. And this is 4 years before Young Guns 1 and
Same
whatnot.
set, though.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of has, but it's one of those things that like. I think it's just kind of like that Generation X time period where it's like, oh, that's what my dad's into is like Westerns and all that. It's the same problem that 007 has too, is that like in the 80s, it's like, I think all the kids are just looking at me and like, oh, geez, here's like my dad's going to drag me to, and so there's this like generation gap because it sounds weird. There's like, sometimes there's people that are like, older than us that I remember being about like in their 50s and they really didn't like Westerns very much. Like Westerns was that kind of thing that like, no, I don't like Westerns. And I don't know if it just brings back like non-flashbacks of them of their dad just watching 24/7 like marathons or something like that, but so there's like this period that gets kind of lost, and I think that's where this film sort of falls into. But what I really think also it is though, it's Lawrence Kasdan coming in and really almost in a sense doing the George Lucas Steven Spielberg thing of being like, what stuff we really loved from like the 40s and 50s was all that Western TV show we kind of grew up the same way that Star Wars is kind of like, hey, all those cool pulps and things like that. That's what this is, because this, when you watch this, you're like, holy crap, it's just like literally like, let's take like almost like a greatest hits of those, the pre like Sergio Leone type Westerns kind of, even though it still has, I think, influences from that, but like more like the 40s, 50s, that kind of era, and just really bringing all the greatness of that out and slamming it together in this one film. And that's what you get in Silverado.
You hit on something with the TV thing that we'll get to in the review, because I think this would have made a tremendous TV series, or even just like a mini series.
Yeah.
I kind of stretch it out a little bit and kind of like build it, because the characters are so good in it that you want more.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing, is you don't get any more at this film. It's wasn't a bust. It just wasn't.
It wasn't the hip thing at the time.
Well, there's a good reason why, and I think we'll kind of uncover the truth of that in the flashback portal.
I think so.
That was an unintentional segue.
Yeah, I think if we would have used an old-fashioned flux capacitor, we'd be getting a little too close.
Yeah, I think so. You know what? Let's just go ahead and jump into the good old flashback portal. The pause is going to be awkward on Twitter. It's just kind of weird. So if you're watching,
we're going to have to get the soundboard going so that we actually have something to like.
Yeah. Well, when we get if you're watching this, we're testing this thing out, but we're pretty satisfied with StreamYard, and I think we're going to do the full shebang, and which will allow us to do some other really cool things that we can't yet do. But I'm not investing until after this youngin's born, because
you don't know what the youngin can do.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what's going to happen that month. So I'm going to start piling episodes. But anyway, we're in the flashback portal. If you never listened to this before, basically this is when you go back in time and you look at the pop culture surrounding the movie that we're reviewing. So in this case, we're going back to July 10th, 1985. I knew immediately one of the movies and some of the songs that we might see going into this before I even had to look it up. But they're a little further down. So we'll start with the Billboard because damn.
Yeah.
So refreshing. When we do the 90s Billboard, it's like, yeah, that's cool. But man, the 80s.
80s and 70s, so.
Oh, that 170s one we did was fire.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think it was good. I can't even remember what movie that was now, but man, it was good.
Yeah, I guess.
So number one on the Billboard charts, speaking, A View to Kill.
Oh,
Duran.
There we go. Well, that's probably close to my favorite 007 theme. So it's up there. Like I would say top 3 at least.
I honestly think the more I listen to it, License to Kill is my favorite. I didn't realize how much until we reviewed it, how much I love that one.
Yeah.
That one's really good. And I like the Jack White. I like actually Quantum of Solace a lot too.
That one took me. It took me a moment to warm up to that one, but I came around to it. You know, I mean, and then the Chris Cornell. I mean, we can go on for days on that, but I pretty much like them all. But
yeah, that's a good one. You know, there's a girl that's been on my mind all the time. Susu Studio.
Good old Phil Collins there.
Got some feel.
Is that Phil Collins by himself, or is that Phil Collins of Genesis?
That's just Phil. Genesis ain't fucking around with that shit. Come on.
I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. If it was
like Phil's gonna go to him like, "Hey, I got this song called Susu Studio. Let me check it out." And they're like,
did you just stutter right there, real quick?
Yeah, the Susu Studio. Well, my mother-in-law, she might be listening. She's Sue. So I call her Susu Studio every once in a while. But you know what she didn't wear?
Yeah, what'd she not wear?
A raspberry beret. Raspberry beret. So we got Phil Collins and Prince back to back, bro.
Yep.
Feeling it. The Search Is Over by Survivor.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Would I lie to you?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm asking. The Eurythmics want to know.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
I would lie to you. They're asking. Every Time You Go Away, Paul Young, number 6. You Give Good Love by Whitney Houston, number 7.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of a big one.
Yeah,
There's one song I'm really waiting for to pop up on here, but maybe it just doesn't make it right yet.
Or is it from the movie that you know is number 1 at the box office?
Yes.
No, it's not on there. It's
too early.
I'll be so pumped. Yeah, it's not risen up the charts, but there's another movie song you're about to hear, and we'll talk about it in just a second. At number 10, but we're not there. Voices Carry by Till Tuesday. I like that song.
Oh, yeah.
Voices Carry. Glory Days. That's what we're living right now.
There we go. Good old Bruce Springsteen.
Glory Days. Young girls.
Just talking about all the people that, were cool in high school, and now what the hell happened?
They weren't good enough, though. No, they weren't good enough, though. You know who's good enough?
Yeah.
The Goonies.
Oh, there we go.
Cyndi Lauper. The Goonies are good enough at number 10. Good enough for me. I like some Cyndi Lauper. I like that Cyndi Lauper song. It's a good one. Not gonna. Obviously, we can go. We can talk about this whole, Billboard Hot 100 and just have so much fun because I'm just scrolling down and just hit. Tears. We got some Tears for Fears on here. But I am scrolling down for one reason because you want to know.
I want to know.
I'm going to spoil it a little bit what we're going to talk about on the box office charts, but The Power of Love.
Oh, there we go.
Lewis in the News. It's number 29.
See,
obviously rising up.
It's rising up there. Such a good song. Like that to me is like, if I think of like a song of kind of like my youth, right there, Huey Lewis.
But this was the peak position for this song.
It never went farther.
No.
It's kind of, I'll say this sounds kind of weird because most people would be like, what? But that song I feel is probably a little bit too heavy for like the top charts. And it sounds weird because you're saying using the word heavy and Huey Lewis in the same sentence. But it's like, I feel like it's probably just a little bit too rock and roll to like continue climbing on that pop chart in a sense.
Well, it's definitely more appreciated now than it was then.
Yeah.
Song.
And you know what it probably is? It's one of the many things where the kids, like the young kids, really liked it a lot. The older kids are like, whatever, man. Going back in time is not that cool. Like,
yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that I might be completely wrong on this. I have a feeling the studio was wanting to push more of the other song. Gotta go back in time.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. I think they wanted to push that one, and then they pushed Power of Love more. And Power of Love is awesome. It's one of my favorite 80s songs. Not just because it's Back to the Future, just
yeah, no, it's a real solid song. I mean that, and I also love the very, very short but awesome Michael J. Fox cover of "Power to Love" in the movie. That's supposed to be like the super like heavy version of it. I would love to hear that whole thing. Like if his band did, that would be so cool.
Just real quick, two other songs that before we get to the box office because it ties right in. Two other. Here's a hint of what's to come at the box office. We Don't Need Another Hero.
Oh, there we go. Mad Max 3.
Yeah, and then we got some St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion.
Yeah.
We've referenced this one before. Man in Motion. So, yeah, there you go. Billboard charts. I mean, I could talk all day long about all this. Jiminy Christmas is so good. I'm just looking at it. Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, no, that's a solid one right there. I mean, I'm already sold with just Power of Love and We Don't Need Another Hero. I mean, those are already go-to songs. Like, hey, you needed to get in the mood to like get some work done. You put those songs on, you're getting pumped up.
I agree. Well, let's look at the box office charts from July 12th through 18th. It's kind of weird because this movie premiered on the 10th, but this is the 12th through 18th. So it's a new movie this week, but it doesn't have all the days. It's kind of weird how this all works out. I don't know if because of July 4th, everything was kind of weird.
Well, they might have structured, because a lot of times when there's a holiday, they sometimes structure those movie releases differently.
Right. This is just kind of odd how this is structured. So the box office might have suffered a little bit from this. It just not literally suffered, but just suffered in terms of ranking on this chart. But there are 3 new movies this week. They're coming in at number 2, number 4, and number 7. Number 2 is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, bringing in $14 million. 4 is Silverado, bringing in $6 million. And then 7 is this little film called Explorers, bringing in $5 million.
Yeah.
And those are the new films this week. Number 1 at the box office, best movie of all time. Best movie of all time, Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Number 1 at the box office. What can I say? Number 3, Cocoon.
Oh yeah, there's another huge. That's one of those movies that was a huge movie, and I feel like it's kind of like I don't hear it brought up. Yeah, totally forgotten. But I just remember when that movie kind of came out and into the early '90s. You always would hear someone talking about it, and it would always play on TV and whatnot. It was a big deal movie. Good old Ronnie Howard.
Oh, Ronnie Howard. Remember when we did our Jewel of the Nile? Not Jewel of the Nile. The
Romancing the Stone.
The Romancing the Stone episode. If I remember correctly, Zemeckis was supposed to do Cocoon.
Yes, I think it's one of those ones.
I got fired because Romancing the Stone was supposed to be ass. And then it was released, and it was an ass. It was great. And then he got Back to the Future. So there's kind of like a link between Back to the Future and Cocoon because that was supposed to be Zemeckis. And he ended up doing Back to the Future instead. And he got his way because he basically got to, tell the studio to eat a whole dick.
Yeah.
Which, I from what I've been watching that Movies That Made Us thing on Netflix. Have you watched any of that?
I haven't watched those. I remember watching it when it had like the toys that made us. I was watching them like at the hospital. I remember. I was like, hey, here we go. Here's some Transformers and some Ninja Turtles and all this kind of stuff.
The Movies That Made Us is even better, I think. And they've done several movies, but Back to the Future and
they do a Cocoon
Back to the
one?
Future and Forrest Gump. They haven't done Cocoon, but they did Back to the Future and Forrest Gump. And Zemeckis had a little bit of a temper, from what I understand.
See,
he wasn't tyrant level like Cameron, but he was.
Yeah, or
he wasn't fucking around either.
What's his name? Tim Burton and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. I just would feel intimidated on a Tim Burton set.
Yeah, I just feel like if you weren't wearing a funny hat, he's not going to treat you right.
I feel like I would like sitting like at lunch with the goth kids, and I like them a lot, but I don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah, but then you realize that they don't really like you, but you think that they like you, and then it just becomes this weird, awkward thing. And
yeah, so like I'm like, hey guys, what do you think of The Power of Love by Huey Lewis? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. I'll just go put on my 2 polos and flip up my collar, and I'm out of here. See you guys.
I wasn't there. I fit in nowhere.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. But really, in seeing this list of these box office movies coming out, this tells me right here why Silverado just didn't make gangbusters. And kind of, I mean, it did decent, but like when you're competing against not only Back to the Future, but Cocoon and Mad Max 3, like that's...
And the Goonies is still...
Oh,
and Almost Fire. They're still on the list, too.
And see, the worst part, too, is now this is kind of grabbing every kind of conceivable audience member. So Silverado's kind of... It feels like this is a movie that's really like trying to grasp that, like, give or take about middle-aged kind of man, like between probably 40 and 60. Not saying that maybe older people might not like it, too, but I feel that's the target audience that it's sort of shooting for is, hey guys, remember when you were a kid? That's totally what this movie's like, that nostalgic flick of the 80s for like a certain generation.
Well, speaking of number 5 on the list, speaking of Brian Dennehy, a franchise that has him as an evil sheriff, Rambo First Blood Part 2 is number 5 on the list.
Oh, geez. Well, see, then you got, God, well, that's just a tough, no matter, I don't care. You could have the best movie in the world. And I mean, I'll say Silverado is pretty much like a perfect flick, but you're competing with so much right there.
If this movie would have been made I'll go ahead and say 3 to 4 years later with the same cast, been a whole different story. Been a whole different story because for the writer of it, writers the Indiana Jones trilogy, and then it's got Danny Glover, you know, all these people went up a notch.
Yeah,
after this, particularly Kevin Costner.
Yeah, because he would have been like No Way Out and like what else would he would have been in right there? The late '80s. Untouchables '89. Bull Durham, yeah.
We'll say if it was released in '89.
Yeah.
You would know. You don't release shit in '89. Actually, I remember that now.
Yeah, Batman.
'89 was a pretty solid year. Well, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Going on that year. So what happened to UHF?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones that probably Silverado, if it would have been released even maybe just only a couple of months difference, maybe. I don't know what the full spectrum of this was, but, you know, I think just hitting right in that holiday period right there of like the dead of summer and going up against just so much. Because, you know, I always have to say is like the average person probably only has money and time for one movie per month. Just a regular Joe coming in to see a cinema, not the person who loves movies. The person who loves movies is going to go see everything.
Willing to pay.
Yeah, because just, unless you're super into movies, you know, most people don't go once a week, if not more than that. You know, they mostly go, okay, it's a special occasion. We're going to go once a month. I mean, maybe back in, you know, the 80s, you might go a little bit more because there's, you know, once again, the movies has a bigger presence at that point. But still,
Back to the Future is the movie you're going to see.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like Back to the Future, and if you already saw Back to the Future, then you're probably going to see Mad Max next. If you're older, you're going to probably see Cocoon. If you're younger, you're going to see the Goonies.
Yeah.
If you know, what was the other one? We had one other one on there. I'm totally. What was the other real big one?
Back to the Future, Mad Max, Goonies.
Oh, Rambo. Probably if you're in about like your 20s, you're going to go see Rambo too.
Well, that was the Rambo crowd was like, I ain't going to see no Alex P. Keaton riding around. Yeah,
because Rambo almost feels like that, especially Rambo 2. That goes to, it's like anybody who's like right in their like late teens, early 20s, getting right into bodybuilding and military.
Yeah,
feel just getting pumped up.
Michael J. Fox, little punk ass bitch. I ain't watching him. God damn it. I always think, just whenever I think of a movie being the wrong demographic, and we're going to go to the rewind review after this, I just always laugh so hard thinking about this. I want to see Talladega Nights. And I was really excited to see it because I'm in part of that movie, just, you know, on the side of the road. And I was so excited to see it. I sat in the back row, and it was this only one other person up there. It was me and my wife, but my girlfriend at the time, and this guy, and he was sitting like 4 or 5 seats down from us. And he was like, the first thing you see in Talladega Nights is that quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, "Hot, nasty, badass speed," and then he goes, "Oh shit, fuck this," and got up and left. He thought it was gonna be like Days of Thunder. He's just kind of some salty old dude, jeans too tight, and just kind of straddled out of there like, "Yeah, I ain't watching this shit."
I don't know why. That reminds me of like two stories. One, I don't know why. When you mentioned Talladega Nights, I almost want to say I remember somebody when that movie coming out, like almost getting offended that movie, like they were making fun of NASCAR, and there was no way he was going to be a part of that. Like I don't know. I hadn't thought about that in years, and I started thinking that. So, granted, there always is whenever it comes to any of that kind of stuff. But the second thing is when you say the guy walking out. One of my favorite ones I remember is going to see Bruno, the Sacha Baron Cohen movie, in theaters, and we go in there. Of course, it's me and 3 other dudes, so it probably just looks like the gayest pack going in. And then there's like these good old boys come on in with their girlfriends, and they got the big old cowboy hats on and everything like that. And they sit down. I'm like, I don't know if they know what they're getting into here, and so on. And about halfway into that movie, when there's a swinging penis going around and everything like that, you could just see him like, okay, time to step up and get out. Couldn't handle it anymore.
Guys, we should have seen that new Western flick out called Brokeback. That's what we should have seen. I don't know what it's about, but that's what we should have seen. That's more up our alley, I think.
I love when people walk out. That's like one of my favorite things in a movie theater. And I'll say it's like, I think if you're making a movie and you can get people to walk out, that's probably almost just as good as people standing up and applauding at the end, because it's almost like, wow, you offended that person so much.
It depends on why.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. You don't want them walking out because your movie technically sucks, but like when you get to the point where like you offended it, like I remember just one more small story, but like it was Captain America 1. Well, Captain America as in the first Avenger one, not technically the older movies, but I remember seeing that one in cinemas, and about like a quarter of the way or so into it, this like 80, 90-year-old couple gets up and walks out, and all I could picture this guy saying to his wife is being like, it's like, that shit didn't happen like that. I served with the captain.
I was there.
Yeah, I was there. Like, yeah, they got all the facts wrong. That's all I thought. It's like he just walked out there. I don't know what he was expecting. Maybe he was expecting like Saving Private Ryan, Captain America style or something like that. But
yeah, I'm trying to think of the only other time I saw a lot of people walk out was that night when they got surprised at Alamo. They were going to show Terminator 2, and then Arnold comes on the screen. Surprise! We get to show, and then they're like, no,
we're going to show Junior.
No, they showed the new one, Dark Fate.
Yeah, that's probably about.
Junior
probably would have been safer choice. Don't get me wrong. I still like Dark Fate, but it doesn't help a whole lot of causes. Arnold's amazing, and Linda Hamilton's good.
Last thing before we go to the rewind review, best Terminator sequel. I think that's it.
Dark Fate.
I think so.
Really?
I mean, sorry, Terminator 2 sequel. I apologize.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense.
After Terminator. Yeah, no, it's not better than Terminator 2. Terminator 2, and then Dark Fate, in my opinion. Is better than Genesis, is better than Salvation.
I actually personally like Genesis a lot. That one I was really impressed. I mean, I like all 6 Terminator movies, but Dark Fate's probably my least favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean,
it had its problems.
I enjoy it, but my problem always is, I know this is just a tangent of tangents, but is the Terminator just keeps like repeating the same thing instead of pushing the story forward.
Yeah. If you're watching on Twitter, you get to see a live look at what we edit out of the show.
Yeah.
And I just save for whatever reason.
It's okay.
We have these all the time. You never get to hear them. So if you're watching live, you're welcome.
There you go.
But anyway, we're going to take a quick fake break, like literally 5 seconds in Twitter time. And we're going to jump into our rewind review of Silverado.
Oh, yeah.
Take a big old sip of water here.
Get the swig going, but...
Get the swig.
Boy, Silverado, though, like, if you want one of those, like, just ultimate, like, fun-filled great story, amazing acting, a humongous cast, cool scenery, all that kind of stuff. Silverado just delivers. And I'll say, it delivers right off the bat. That movie has such a good intro where it's just right in the beginning, you're in this like confined, like tiny little cabin, and it goes right into a shootout, and it's
I almost felt like I missed something for a second.
Yeah, because it has that feeling really like walking to a theater and being like, oh shit, like I thought we were just going to miss the trailers. The next thing you know, we walked in a little too late. But it just gets right off the bat, like almost like a 007 intro, and there's just this big shootout and everything like that. And one of the best parts too is like after the whole shootout inside, and it's really cool and really badass, is then he kicks open the door and you just get this ultimate wide view of probably like New Mexico, wherever they shot it at, and you just get this huge. It just makes the movie go from feeling like this little tiny bottle film inside this building to boom, the lights are open and everything like that, and you just get this giant grand vista scape going on.
Silverado.
Yeah, and the credits start rolling.
You come to your senses. That's not how it goes.
No, but
this movie, it's from the very jump, it kind of throws you into it. I really did feel like I missed something. It was a little abrupt, but it was really good. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't really tell you exactly what happened there for a while. Like Scott Glenn's character, Emmett.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah, he's kind of like in this little shed, just doing whatever he's doing, eat, whatever. Remember that old song, Old Dan Tucker?
Oh, yeah.
Washed his hair with a... Oh, he combed his hair with a wagon wheel, had a toothache in his heel. Mm-hmm. I just picture him being kind of tough and grizzled like that, probably eating shoe leather or, whatever he does in there. I don't want to know. And then he just, all of a sudden he's getting shot up, and then he kind of leaves. And then,
credits roll.
Yeah. And then it's cool because you kind of just slowly introduce the characters. I don't want to reveal how all of them are revealed and brought into the story, but the first... like 30 minutes, you're into it. You're really intrigued in the characters. You're like, well, where the hell is this going? Because you met all these little people. They're in the movie more. Yeah. And then you're like, how does this all coalesce? And it all just kind of just slowly builds and grows together. And man, this is an underrated flick.
Oh, so as I said, I think it just kind of, it's just one of those, there's actually a good handful of 80s movies that kind of they're really big movies, but they just sort of get bypassed. And I don't know if it's just the time and the era and so on like that. But this is one of those ones where it's like, you watch this, it's like, dude, it's one of those Westerns you can't complain at all about. I mean, it's solid the whole way through. And just each of the introductions, I mean, you're going along the way, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's another character that appears. It's like, they get to that first town and whatnot where a couple of them met up already and so on like that. And it's like, there's John Cleese, and he's like the sheriff of this town. He's only in it in the beginning part, but it's just like, whoa, what the hell?
Oh yeah, I forgot John Cleese was in it. Yeah, he was good in it.
Yeah, and he's really chewing the scenery and everything like that. And it's that thing where it's like he gets to come and kind of play like a serious role, though it's still got just a bit of that wit and charm to it.
This movie falls into like a weird little area because a lot of the forgotten films in the 80s that ended up being big, Blade Runner, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, we can go on and on. There's all kinds of them. Mm-hmm. I found an audience later. They're all kind of unique or different in some way. This is just a really good film. You can't say it revolutionized anything. You can't say it's, this groundbreaking Western, but it's just really, really good. But there's nothing to make it like when you're talking with people and you're like, forgotten movies you must see in the 80s. This is never going to be on that list. Mm-hmm. But if you see it, you're always like, damn, this is a good movie. It's kind of, not talked about enough. Yeah. Especially with the cast and how well everything is. There's really only one major flaw with this movie, and we'll kind of discuss that. And it's pretty big, but it doesn't really detract that much from the final product. But so this was your first viewing?
Yeah, as well as movies, I want to say that I've probably seen like bits and pieces back in the olden days, just in the era of when you just flip through TV and you just kind of go to different channels, because it's like one of those ones like. But at the same time, I couldn't. If I did see any of it, I couldn't remember anything of it, because I've said you're just watching the credits and all of a sudden you just keep seeing these names appear and you're like, holy crap, what the hell? Like, what do we we're getting into all kinds of stuff here, and with that intro and just kind of getting all these characters and so on, just having everything's badass. Like, you know, you get like when Danny Glover's character's kind of introduced, and he's sort of like the sniper guy, just taking guys out left and right and whatnot. And I guess he's technically introduced before. He's introduced when he goes to the bar. But I'm just thinking when he gets to like his action scenes and so on, you're like, dude, he's just kicking ass left and right here, just taking people out.
Dude, you know, it reminded me of a little bit. A lot of westerns remind me of this, but this one particularly did, and there's no really good reason for it because none of the characters match up. But did you ever play? Possible tangent upcoming, but we're just back in the Super Nintendo days. Did you ever play Sunset Riders?
Dude, that Sunset Riders is one of my all-time favorite games ever. I have put so many hours into that game. Doesn't matter. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, arcade. You know, I got all the art, you know, whatnot. Like, that's one of those arcade cabinets that one of these days I'm just going to drop like $3,000 onto it.
My cousin Luke has it.
Oh, does he?
He bought it.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, he bought the cabinet.
The 2-player or the 4-player version?
I want to say it was 4-player.
Oh, nice.
I want to say.
Because there's 2 different types. That's the reason I say that.
I feel pretty confident it was I could message him and we'll find out by the end of the show, possibly.
Yeah. But no, Sunset Riders, because, well, here's the thing. I love Westerns so much, and I love Western video games, and the weird thing about Western video games is, like, you could pretty much count them all in one hand. They have not made very many ones, especially back in the day. I mean, Sunset Riders, Gunsmoke, you got Wild Guns, you know, there's just not tons. Lethal Enforcers 2, the gunfighters, like, you know, there's not tons of Mad Dog McCree, like, that's one of my favorites too, but, you know, but there's so little. Even, like, this day and age, you got Red Dead Redemption being, like, so huge and popular, but nobody else seems to throw another game out there, you know. We had Gun before that, but that's kind of it. And it kind of bums me out because it's like I just love Western stuff anyways, and, you know, really, when we kind of grew up in, like, the total era where Westerns have just never been popular, though. You know what I mean? Like,
until we got a little older.
Yeah, maybe, but even still, like, the weird thing is Westerns, I mean, like, you always get like a couple of them a year, and I know me and Ryan Dunnigan always kind of talk about this. It's just like whenever there's a Western movie in theaters, you just go and see it. It's like it feels like your civic duty to just support the cause or whatever it is, even if it's not the greatest Western. You go there and you show your support, you know, because you're really only gifted maybe, if you're lucky, 1, 2, or 3 movies. You know, I mean, there's always some straight to DVD one or something like that, but very rarely are they ever in theaters and whatnot. And I mean, sometimes you get some really good ones. Like there's that. Recently, I guess 2 years ago or something like that, the Christian Bale one, I'm totally drawing a blank, but the Hostiles.
Oh, Hostiles was really good.
Oh, so good. You know, and it's like, well, that's the thing. It's like, I remember that being like one of the 2 Westerns that came out in theaters that year, you know, so there's just never very many.
Well, the late 2000s, early 2010s, there was like a little renaissance. Kind of how we had that mini horror renaissance. I guess we're still in it. Where we're getting a lot of the remakes and reboots. Some are good, some are terrible. And then like you're also getting some quality horror films. Like remember like 2008, 2003, Ten to Yuma.
Yep. A good
awesome.
remake.
I love that film. True Grit.
Another good remake.
The Coen brother, but that's better than the original. I'm sorry.
I like both of them, but they are good. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a lot of those in there. And then up until recently, then you had a lot of those neo-westerns like No Country for Old Men, and then Hell or High Water. Oh, fucking good.
That movie has always been like me and Dunning, and that's another one we always mention on Old Man on My Podcast, is like one of those things. It's like that was like one of the best movies of that year, but we didn't see it till like a couple years later. It's just like, holy crap! If I would have saw that would have been like, you know, top 1 or 2 films. Like that was so good.
Taylor Sheridan had that run with, you know, you had Sicario, then Hell or High Water, and then did you ever see Wind River? Yeah,
that was an interesting one. That was like I didn't know what I was getting into exactly when I was like, oh, okay, that's one of these type of movies. It's more like a murder mystery type thing.
Yeah, well, that was his directorial debut. And I think it's technically part of a trilogy with the first 2, like a kind of like a thematic trilogy or whatever you call those. Yeah, where
they just are connected in kind of somewhat spirit or style.
Yeah, like the Carpenter trilogy, the End of the World trilogy, or Apocalypse trilogy is what he calls it, but way off topic. But yeah,
still
reminded me of Sunset Riders.
Yeah, exactly, because the way it is like you see all 4 characters, and the way, especially there's a part where they're riding. It's a little bit later in the film.
Yes,
all 4 of them are riding. It's just that right angle. I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure Sunset Riders might have even kind of aped from this movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sunset Riders was a big part of my childhood.
Oh God, that one's one of those ones. I don't know how much time I put into that.
It was. He said it was 4-player.
Oh, that's even better to have the 4-player version.
The 4-player one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a game that I probably beat like at least quarterly. Since like 1993 or I guess 4, I've probably beaten that game quarterly. Always. Doesn't matter what version.
Yeah, Sunset Riders. Quick break.
Yeah. You text him back?
Yeah.
Well, still, yeah. That's one of those ones. Just being able to, have that arcade cabinet. That's one of those ones. Like, I just want that arcade cabinet just in its original glory. I know I got my other arcade cabinet I put together with 10,000 games in it and whatnot. But I just want an original Sunset Riders, just with the painting and all that good stuff.
We
the
connected
marquees
on this one.
Oh,
we like 100 things we have before, but this one's a big
Sunset Riders. Well, that's to me like that just speaks magic to me. Like Sunset Riders, it's like, I would say like that's in like my top 10 like best experiences in like a video game.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna maybe say like top 10 because it's kind of hard to compare like a 30-minute arcade game to like everything else. But like when I think of just experiences in life, Sunset Riders is something that has like defined me, and that might even be what even sets me forward to like why I like Westerns so much. Could almost even come from something like Sunset Riders.
Yeah, because it was like well, first of all, I was terrible at it. I'm not very good at video games. I've always been pretty bad at it. And so, but my cousin Luke, who had the cabinet, he's tremendous, and I think he's probably smashed that game like 100 times. And then, but I think my brother beat it too. But I don't even know where I got that game at. And I know we're still talking about this and not Silverado, but
it's still Western oriented.
Yeah, I feel like it just ended up like my mom got me a bunch of games at one point, and it kind of ended up in this pile. I'm like, I ain't playing this. This looks stupid, and it ended up being my favorite game out of So, yeah, I kind of feel like maybe Sunset Riders just. I mean, the characters are completely different.
Yeah,
in Silverado, but yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. If you've never played that game and you have a chance to play it. Play it. Well,
you can literally go pick it up on PS4, Switch, Xbox, PC. They have it on the.
Oh, it is on Switch, isn't it?
They put it on like there's that. I'm trying to blank on what they're called right now, but there's that arcade company that pretty much does like just the really good remasters of like all the old arcade games, and they got it for sale on there too. And it's like you just always get a super solid version. When I saw that pop up on Switch, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna have it because why not? I'll take every version I could possibly have of Sunset Riders. Sunset Riders Inspire. And I just want to say this real quick on the Sunset Riders. I gotta share. I'll probably share it with you later, but I have a Pizza Boys picture that I did that's Sunset Riders inspired, just like on a novelty kind of like promo thing.
Dude,
I actually have a T-shirt of it too. So
what? Oh, I might need to get that. That's a big deal because I didn't know you were a big fan of it like I was. That game was so good.
Yeah, that game. There's just not enough people that just have that same love for it. But once you meet somebody, you're like, oh my gosh, Sunset Riders. It's like.
I just got that energy from this film. It was just, I think it was the way they introduced the characters is what it was. And like somehow, I can't explain how, but there was like a camaraderie instantly. Just some type of familiarity, just something that brought you in with both that game and this movie that you just want to hang out with these characters. And there's no reason to want to with Sunset Riders especially, but yeah, man, it's just something about it. But this movie it's definitely inspired by, you're right, the earlier westerns, the 40s, 50s, pre Sergio Leone westerns, pre spaghetti westerns. It's got that kind of almost pulp, kind of like the western version of Flash Gordon kind of feel almost, because it's serialized. It's this would have been a great TV show.
Yeah, well, it's kind of got almost even that sort of Western sort of, I'm going to call it kind of like the comic book feel too, where it's got just a little bit of more of like a hero feel to it. Like it's not like a realistic Western. It's not like a stylized Western. I guess you would say like the spaghetti Western, something like that. It has just more just like this good old fashioned, just like, hey, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys. We're going to kind of kick ass, save the day, do what's right, and so on. And here's our kind of ragtag motley crew of fellas, getting together here, and just the feel of it. And plus, I think too, is also you got that soundtrack pumping that's like almost kind of like it's an 80s one, but it's like really feels like that's what gives me a lot of feeling for like what we kind of get to. And like, I feel like that sort of Steven Spielberg, George Lucas era with all that just good, almost sunny day feel. And maybe it's just a nostalgic of that kind of time period and that age, but just that like, just a very like high spirits, like, music and so on.
It had a Silvestri feel.
Yeah.
I even looked it up to see if it was him. It's like, it didn't sound like him, but it had a feel similar to that. It's a good score. We got nominated for best score, I think, at the Oscars.
Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah. It was a little much a few times, but it was really, really good. I mean, I always try to find the little things to complain, even when it's a good movie. Just try to like, okay, why is this like a 70%? But, all the characters were good. Kevin Costner's character annoyed me a little bit at first.
Well, Kevin Costner's character, like, when he first comes out, it's weird because it's like, it's not a normal Kevin Costner. Because, in a sense, Kevin Costner, he just plays the dick guy really good. Like, that's who he always is. And I love Kevin for all that kind of stuff. But in this one, it's like, he's almost like character acting, where he's playing the goofy, kind of dumb, like, youthful figure guy, where he's almost like, kind of like partially retarded or kind of off.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a Gilbert Grape vibe.
Yeah. I mean, like, at first he's like hanging on like the bars and jail. He's like, yeah, man, I just kind of kissed a girl. Like, are you sure that's all you did? He's like, yeah, I was just hanging out, man. Like,
I just gave the rabbit a hug.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, my gun went off. I mean, both of them. Just saying. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, Kevin. And he's like swinging on the bars and stuff. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, like he's like an 8-year-old at like a play park.
Yeah, he had to tone that character down just a little bit. Once he got it dialed in, it was good. But at first, I'm like, I don't know if I kind of want to punch this guy. And then I got to really like the character. But
yeah, he comes around definitely. But at first, you're like, what the like? I think it's just I gotta say this. I think it's just because Kevin Costner is one of those kind of actors. He's an amazing actor, but if he's not kind of doing the Kevin Costner thing, I feel he's kind of like a Clint Eastwood. Like those few movies you get where they start character acting, you're like, what the hell is going on?
Kevin Costner kind of got beat up for a while because he had those bombs,
which are amazing films.
Which, yeah, I'm very pro Kevin Costner. I don't give a shit what anybody says.
Postman, amazing. Wyatt Earp, totally awesome. Waterworld, one of my favorites. It's all those movies just get blamed because they were just too expensive. That was their problem, is they were just too expensive.
If those movies would have made the money, he would have been looked at completely different. Look at James Cameron. He had expensive ass movies. They just delivered at the box office. But
yeah,
Waterworld was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah, because that's a movie I felt like that's kind of turned around. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, there's always been the defenders of the faith of Waterworld. And it seems like if you like Mad Max, how could you not like Waterworld? But it's one of those ones, as time has gone on, that one kind of, and even the people that made Waterworld, they're all like, yo, that movie was not a bomb. Like, people say that, but like, we didn't make the Universal Target intended money. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, because of Universal Studios and everything like that, Waterworld's probably made more money than more movies out there.
Oh yeah, that movie's made a lot of money, and kind of ADD kicked in just real quick. So all the characters in this, you know, my favorite character was in this. Mm-hmm. The best, I think, the most well-rounded character and the best performance was actually Danny Glover.
I agree. I felt Danny Glover stole the show so much in this.
Yes. Danny Glover was so good in this movie, and I thought that he was going to be underutilized. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like the intention was for him to be I don't think he was supposed to be in this as much as he was. Mm-hmm. I just kind of felt like the story kept going back to that character more and more. And because I felt like when he left at that one point, he said, I'm going to go see my mama. I kind of felt like,
we're not
going to see him much. Yeah, we're going to see him a couple more times, and he's going to pop in at some random point in time. Like that one character in Action Jackson that just shows back up like
at the very end.
I thought it was gonna be like that, but no, he's vital to the story. Best character, best written character, best performance, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. 80s Danny Glover, prime Idris Elba. I'm going going Danny.
Oh, for me, Danny Glover, it's probably just growing up, just having like such a love of Lethal Weapon and Predator 2 and all that kind of stuff. It's like one of those ones, like Danny Glover, he'll sell a movie to me so fast. Like even like it was like when I learned, because I didn't see Saw when it first came out, but when I learned that Danny Glover was in it, I was like, I went out on my web, I'm like, oh, I got to see Saw now. Danny Glover's in there? What, are you kidding me? Why was that not in the trailer? Maybe it was. I just didn't notice it. But I'm like, that to me, you slap him on the poster, I would have been there in 2 seconds.
Danny, everybody loves that. It's so underutilized at different parts of his career. Like people love Danny Glover.
Yeah, Gone Fishing, one of the best ones.
Don't get me started on Gone Fishing. I can have when I saw the tomato score for that, I'm like, what did I see?
Yeah, no, Gone Fishing.
Shit out of that movie.
My gosh, that's another one. Like Gone Fishing and Sunset Riders, you combine that together, that is a perfect hangout night for me in the 90s.
Yeah, well, I think we should live stream something like, we should. We're not gonna do this. Not gonna be a video game channel ever. At least this part of it. Now, if you want to devolve it into something, I'm fine with it.
We did it. We did a video game episode once that's sitting on like the back burners of my PC.
Oh yeah, we're not that. You talking about the N64 one?
Yeah, I'm planning on releasing that pretty soon.
But I was talking more along the lines of just in terms of actually playing video games. Mm-hmm. But maybe if we could organize a Sunset Riders.
Do a little Sunset Riders.
I love how this turned into a Sunset Riders episode.
Well, as I said, like, I mean, when you brought that up, I was like, that was the same thing. I was feeling it too. Watching this movie just gave me Sunset Riders vibes, and I was just like, yep, yeah. And
it's really hard to put your finger on what it is. Mm-hmm. It really is. I think for me, there's that right when they kind of team up. That there's that one shot where they roll to the edge of this canyon. Great shot, and there's the mountains in the background, and it's like, yeah, we're teamed up, and the music kicks in, like, yeah, we're going ride to go to fuck some shit up, Silverado, and then like there's just a shot of the horses' heads, but like like in a line, and like they're riding, and like they're like, we're a team now.
See, I could literally see this movie re-edited with Sunset Riders music, where it's just like, that's the problem. The music was so damn good. Oh, I know, but still, just edit in some Sunset Riders music just for that, like nostalgic sake.
And then like an intro scene, like with Elliot, and it's just like with his guns or whatever. Yeah, the game was fire, man.
Yeah. Just like this movie. So just like this movie.
This movie is very underrated.
Oh, I think so.
It doesn't break any ground it's just a good Western. And 80s didn't have enough of them. Off the top of your head, just what are some 80s, just like 80s Westerns?
Yeah, it's like there's Young Guns. That's like the kind of the really big one. And then there's a couple of those like kind of later days, like I want to say like Pale Rider from Clint Eastwood is 81. Mm-hmm. I could be kind of wrong, but I want to say that's right there. There's like Bronco Billy or whatever the heck that one is by Clint Eastwood too. I mean, that's more of a modern day Western but still, like the only things I kind of think of is in like the early 80s is there's like those movies that they kind of call them sort of like I guess like the good old boy kind of, maybe even redneck. I always kind of like to call them more the good old boy films, but like that kind of era that follows after like Dukes of Hazzard and Smokey the Bandit, that kind of has that cowboy vibe and feel, but it's not necessarily like a straight 1800s Western stuff.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think another reason the 80s wasn't kind to Westerns is because it was like almost became a parody at that point. Mm-hmm. Like I look up 80s Westerns, one of the first ones that pops up is Three Amigos.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a great film, though.
It is a good film, but you also had like towards the end of the 80s, you had City Slickers.
Oh, that's an amazing one right there, too. Yeah, so you start getting a lot more of, I guess, the comedy one. Because really, I guess, the next really big one, other than Dances with Wolves, I guess there's that one, too, because that's 90. But I think 91 is Unforgiven. And that's kind of that other real, like, that almost felt like the Western to end all Westerns. Like, almost like, the Unforgiven was almost even designed to be like, if this was the last Western ever made, it sort of like, solidifies the whole experience. In a sense, the whole Clint Eastwood experience, because it almost feels like that character could be like, you take all Clint Eastwood's like, big characters and like fuse them together, and that's just him old and where he's at now.
Unforgiven is just so damn good.
So good.
A couple things to touch on in this show. We touched on the score. I thought the costumes were really good. Mm-hmm. I thought that was something that's kind of like you kind of forget about with Westerns, but they all look cool as hell.
Yeah.
They all have their unique style, especially with the guns too. There's attention to detail with the guns.
Yep.
Even John Cleese has some British gun that they never used in a Western before.
Yeah, well, that's what like is like the characters took on kind of like who they sort of were. So it's like here's a British guy in here. Even when they had Jeff Goldblum in here, he kind of his nickname was Slick and everything like that, and he was almost like kind of supposed to be. They call him like the Gambler, but it felt like he was supposed to be like the pimp.
Yeah,
like,
he did. So
yeah,
have more of a
because the movie has like a PG-13, so it does have that like even though it's still violent and carries all that kind of stuff, it's still kind of just that slightly toned down. But I feel like that's the kind of capture that serial feel. Like in a sense, no different than like how Star Wars sort of does. But this almost feels like this is Star Wars, but for a straight up Western. Like it's just like, hey, take all the stuff you love from old sci-fi, and then that's what Star Wars becomes is like you put in Dune and you put in like Flash Gordon and you put in all that old stuff, and now you kind of combine that together, and that's almost what this feels like. Is this almost feels like you take all those movies from back in the day, 40s, 50s, anything from just even like John Wayne to I should draw a blank right now on some of those ones right now. There's one I could think of. It's black and white. It's in the 50s. I know it describes like a lot of movies. I can think because it's shot actually up where I'm at. It has a bunch of scenes up here, but I'm just totally drawing a blank on it. Whatever. That's just, it's at that point of the night, but still.
Yeah.
Like that movie reminded me a lot of like Big Things Here and whatnot too.
Yeah, see Silverado. It's on Netflix right now. Everybody has Netflix, or somebody that has it, and you can steal the code. If you're into watching 80s movies, and I know a lot of you have seen this, it just kind of missed, it's my radar. I've known about it for a few years. I knew Kazan directed it a few years ago, and I thought I need to give this film a chance. And eventually I got to it. Wish I got into it sooner. This film I would have loved to see some sequels from this. Mm-hmm. You could have easily done 3 movies with this, and the characters just evolve and do more and more with them. But man, this was such a fun film. Brian Dennehy's great in it. We forgot to mention him.
Yep.
He kind of slowly reveals himself as the bad guy, and really, there's no main antagonist until I would say probably about the 45-minute mark, and in that where that kind of evolves. But it's the first 45 minutes of this film is just kind of like all the characters' storylines kind of coalescing in this, and then it takes off from there.
Mm-hmm. No, it kind of rotates around until you kind of figure out where it was. Really quick, I just want to say that movie I was thinking of was High Noon with Gary Cooper.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. Makes sense. But there's definitely one of the best westerns of the 80s, even though there's not much of a choice. Mm-hmm. I will say it's more fun than Young Guns. Special place in my heart for Young Guns. Probably overall, honestly, a better movie. Yeah. Definitely better acted than Young Guns, but I can't say I love it more than Young Guns. Because,
well, for me, it's Young Guns 2 is where it's at for me there, but...
they're both good. Yeah. They're both good.
But this is one of those ones, this is like that thing, if this was on anybody's, top 10, Western films, I'd be like, oh, I totally get it. That makes sense. You know what I mean? For me, it's I don't know. That'd be a tough one to see, where it would be exactly on there. Because it's nothing I can complain about. Everything in it's super solid, super good. But yeah, where it would fall, I would still say high. And it's definitely pretty darn good the whole way through. And it's one of those ones that, this movie right here, if you almost even never saw a Western, this one could give you a lot of Western. Almost you get a lot of bang for your buck out of this one. It gives you a lot of these things all in one package.
Mm-hmm. I do want to mention real quick, this film has a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think I like to always bring that up because I'm an advocate for reevaluating films. Mm-hmm. I think that films should be reevaluated by critics and reassessed every 10 years. Yeah. Personally, I think this will get a little bit higher score. I will say there's one major flaw with this film, and it is a legitimate flaw. And it's Rosanna Arquette's character. They kind of introduced her as a love interest.
Oh, to
Kevin Kline's character.
Oh no, okay, yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, and then later on, she's kind of a love interest to Emmett. What is his name?
Oh, Scott Glenn.
Thank you. Goodness gracious. See, we forget his name. Then she's kind of a love interest to Scott Glenn's character, and they never really just she's just a kind of a pretty lady that wants to farm, and they never really do enough with that character. And I read that a lot of her stuff ended up on the cutting room floor, and you can tell.
Yeah. Because, I was thinking the same thing, too, because, like, at the very end of the movie, it's like she's just kind of there, and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot she was a part of something here. But, like, and those are those many things that's, like, I would love knowing that there is kind of extra footage and so on. This movie probably would benefit from, like, hey, let's just go out and just make a little bit of an extended cut just for novelty's sake, if anything. Yeah,
I would buy it. I'd be interested in it. Kind of know what happened to that character, because I remember there was a point in the movie where Kevin Kline is like, he's kind of like courting her for a little bit and really interested in her and trying really hard, and then all of a sudden at one point he's in the bar. It's like, well, if you're kind of interested in her, I'm not going to get in your way. Is basically what he says, the Scott Glenn's character to Elliot, and then you kind of see them having like a little bit of a thing, and then it just disappears. It just doesn't show back up. So. That was screwed up.
It reminds me of that thing. It's sometimes that problem you get when you get too many characters, because there's only, in a sense, enough time for, so many things. It's not that you just got to have only a couple characters, but there's sometimes gets to, like, there's a certain number where it's just like, okay, now we've just run out of screen time for these other characters. Because I think also it's like the farther we get in here, we start, because this movie also starts introducing characters like even way late in the movie, like an hour and a half into it. Because I almost want to say Jeff Goldblum doesn't even appear till like
about an hour.
Yeah, if not even longer than that. Because then once Jeff Goldblum's character comes in, then we get Danny Glover's sister comes in. So we start getting these other characters stacked on top. Then we get, what's her name, who, well, she sort of owns the bar. She runs the bar. That starts to become like another main character. The lady from like, I think she's from like NCIS or whatever. That's what I was saying. Or maybe not. No. Yeah. But whatever. Like
you would immediately recognize her.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all that kind of stuff. So we start actually, it's kind of a weird one where like you start off and like you get introduced to like the first, I don't know, I guess like 8 characters if you kind of include some of the bad guys who kind of turn later and so on. And then it's like, past an hour later, you get introduced to a second wave of characters and so on. It's not saying that's anything kind of bad, but I think the downfall is we've gotten so many characters at some point, it's almost like... Yeah, she almost needs it's almost kind of like with the new 007 movie, where they probably could have just combined some of those characters instead of having so many of them. And I almost feel she could almost have been combined. She almost could have been combined. It sounds weird, but with the lady running the bar, that could have been her.
Yeah, I mean,
and she wants to get into the property and just, I kind of hate to say it, but like sometimes some of those characters kind of would probably work better if they were simplified and kind of there, and that would have equaled the screen time out for them or something like that.
I personally think that this would have been better as a miniseries, like Lonesome Dove.
Oh yeah,
because Lonesome Dove also had Danny Glover, Tommy Lee Jones, Robert Duvall. I'm looking at it right now. Damn, what a cast for that! And Chris Cooper, Angelica Houston. Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah, tons.
This you could have expanded on so many different storylines, got to know the characters, because you just wanted to get to know the characters more. You have a slow reveal of the Ron Dennehy character, kind of let that kind of fester, like, hey, maybe he's a dick. Oh, he's a dick. Is he a dick? He's a dick. And kind of stretched it out, because that's 384 minutes on Lonesome Dove. That's what this film needed that.
Yeah, well, it's like, and I kind of wonder, what would you think this movie would be like if it was just, because I think it only just breaches a little over the 2-hour mark. I could be kind of wrong, but I thought it was only like 2 hours and like 10 or
2 hours and 12. That's with credits, so probably a little over 2 hours.
Yeah, like what if this movie was a 2.5? Do you think that would have kind of filled in sort of the void right there? And just, and there's always more you can always expand on, but just an extra, in a sense, 20 minutes.
I think if it was made today, it would have been.
Yeah.
I think if it was made today, they would have done it. I wasn't bored.
No, well, that's the only thing is I say with this movie is I feel if it does become a 2.5-hour movie, does that extend it too much? Because it's almost like pacing-wise, it's perfect. It's like, really, I guess if the only like most minor fault there is that there's just some characters that just don't get enough screen time to kind of flesh them out. If that's the only problem, that's really not so bad compared to like the fact that the thing runs as smooth as all can be. So I'd be afraid that almost, as I said, like I wouldn't mind seeing an extended cut just for novelty's sake, but for the core theatrical release, a 2.5-hour one might have made it drag just ever so slightly.
This is just a couple nerds. Like nerding out and like, what if, taking something too far, because honestly, Silverado as is great.
Well, that's, I mean, I think this movie's perfect 4 out of 4. Like I like my whatever like minor complaints are really they're so minor. They're not even really complaints. I just feel like it's more like an understandable, like, hey, sometimes there's just certain things that just aren't always going to work out 100% the way you want them to.
Go watch it if you've never seen it.
Yeah, it's
definitely
amazing.
Go watch it. And so the moral of the story for this podcast, this episode, watch Silverado and play Sunset Riders.
Yeah, buddy.
If you could do them both in one night and have some friends over.
Oh, you got pretty, you know what I mean? Like, get some Slurpees and whatnot. Really, like, flesh out this experience here. Finish the night off with some Gone Fishing. I know it sounds like it doesn't fit in, but it does. It will, especially with the Slurpees.
We got to get Gone Fishing again.
Yeah.
We did that years ago.
Well, wasn't that like one of those lost episodes? I didn't think that one ever made it to...
Did it? I don't think it did.
Yeah.
I don't think it did. We got to do Gone Fishing because, man, I got so many stories about that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for listening. If you're watching on Twitter, thanks for stopping by and hanging out. This is not going to be something we do on a consistent basis. Once I'm going to get past this month, because any day now, baby number 2 is going to be here. So I'm going to... This may be the last episode. Before that, we might get one more in. We'll kind of just see how things play out. Yeah, we won't be doing this fully live on Twitter all the time, but we do have some ideas for live broadcasts and streams, and we might even do some pre-episode stuff. So we're playing around with this. We've got a lot of things in the works with. We're big fans of what's going on at StreamYard, so, and how it's helping us. So
yep,
definitely
I'm impressed.
That. Yeah, same. But more of that once the baby comes. So February is not going to be it's going to be a lot of the backlog episodes. And maybe into the first week of March, but then kind of depending on when the baby gets here. But after that, it's full steam ahead with what we're doing. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Obviously, Spencer, oldmanorange.com, right?
Oldmanorange.com. That's where you can find more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, old animations and videos, and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah. Sunset Riders references.
Sunset Riders references. Yes. Yeah. Hey, I got T-shirts. If you come down, I mean, I know. Well, since this is streaming live, I feel like I can say this, and it doesn't have that weird like, oh, well, it'll come up like 3 weeks past. But in a smaller kind of county of Amador County at Plymouth, I'm going to Comic-Con this Sunday, and I'll have those Pizza Boys Sunset Riders T-shirts. I call it the Pizza Boys Arcade T-shirt because it's technically kind of like a crossover stuff of. It's got a Sunset Riders, a Metal Slug, and a Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, the Ninja Turtles kind of intro thing was kind of similar. In a weird way, Sunset Riders.
Well, they're both Konami games, so that makes.
Oh, well, that makes
yeah.
Gosh, that's why it's so good.
Yep.
Man, nostalgia right there. But thanks for listening. If you're already listening on Twitter, you know where to find us on Twitter at Via VHS Pod. But if you're not, that's where to go find us. At Via VHS on Instagram at Via VHS Pod. A lot of cool stuff coming on the way. Maybe some retro wrestling. Maybe some old commercials. We're talking about doing kind of like a live stream. So maybe watching some 80s and 90s commercials. Probably more 90s because we'll remember it.
Yeah, well, this sounds weird, though. I watched a crap ton of 80s commercials because I had all the VHSs taped off TV.
No, hey, you know what? Shits and giggles. I don't know. It might not turn out the same for you as it did for me. Just type in your birthday on YouTube. Like the actual day you were born, not just the date, but like the official day. You'll find I found some really cool commercials. Yeah, because it comes up, Sid Peckinpah died the day I was born. Yep. And so I found a news report that was like Sid Peckinpah died the day. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. And so yeah, but anyway, thanks for listening to Via VHS Podcast. Go to oldmanorange.com, find all kinds of cool stuff there. Stay tuned for more awesome retro nostalgia goodness. And with that, Via VHS is out.